They say the worst customers are the ones who never leave. But no one warned me about the ones who come back from hell. I used to work them, night shift at a tiny video rental shop in Seattle. Back in the early 2000s, it was called Cinetime Rentals, one of those places that smelled like popcorn, plastic, and old carpet cleaner. We had crooked neon lights that hummed above the windows and a security camera that blinked but didn't actually record. Most nights I was alone until closing, surrounded by rows of forgotten VHS tapes and cheap DVDs. It wasn't glamorous, but I liked it. The customers were unusual, but I appreciated their uniqueness. You could learn a lot about people from the movies they rented until Vanessa Ray started coming in, and she changed the entire mood of the store. The first visit it was a rainy Wednesday night when she first appeared. The bell above the door jingled softly, and a gust of cold air swept in. She wore oversized sunglasses, though it was nearly midnight, and her lipstick was smeared like melted wax. Her hands trembled as she gripped a tiny purse. She looked around with this strange mixture of pride and paranoia. Then, her gaze landed on me. "Which of my movies do you carry?" That was the first thing she ever said to me. "No, hello, no small talk." I blinked, unsure if I'd heard right. "Sorry, ma'am, could you repeat that?" "My movies," she said, leaning closer. "Which ones do you have?" Her breath smelled of cigarettes and cheap vodka. When I told her our computer only searched by title, not actor, she scowled. "That's ridiculous," she snapped. "How can you not know what you sell?" She started pacing, muttering under her breath, eyes darting across the aisles. Finally, she pointed toward the back curtain, the adult section. "They're back there, right?" I nodded. She froze. "I'm not going in there. That threw me off." "Ma'am, if you want to check which titles we—" "No! I'm not going in there." She stormed out, leaving the bell jingling violently behind her. I stood frozen for a while, trying to decide whether to laugh or worry. But she came back the next night and the next. Every time the same question. Every time the same refusal to look for herself. It became routine. Midnight, rain outside, her voice slicing through the quiet. "Which of my movies do you carry?" Weeks of madness. She became the store's unwanted mascot. Some nights she'd arrive shaking, whispering to herself. Other times she'd scream so loud that people across the street peeked through the window to see the commotion. Once, she slammed her purse onto the counter so hard the zipper broke. A handful of prescription bottles tumbled out, all with her name on them. She scooped them up quickly, eyes wide. "Don't you dare touch those." I held up my hands, trying to calm her. "No problem. Take your time." When she left that night, I locked the door early. It wasn't that I thought she'd hurt me, but there was something deeply off about her, that vacant look in her eyes. The way she'd suddenly smile, like she remembered something horrible, the disappearance, then suddenly she stopped coming. 1 week, 2 weeks, month. I didn't realize how tense I'd been until the silence returned. I started leaving the lights dimmed again, playing old horror movies on the back TV, feeling safe. Then, one foggy Thursday, the bell jingled again and she walked in. The return at first? I didn't recognize her. Her hair was greasy, clumped together, and sticking up like static. Her sweatshirt looked slept in for weeks. And then there was the bruise, a massive black eye that spread down her cheek. But it was her pupils that truly froze me. Huge, consuming almost all the color from her eyes. The whites had turned yellow. "Which of my movies do you carry?" she whispered. Her voice was hoarse, cracking like broken glass. I swallowed. "Vanessa, it's been a while. Are you okay?" She stared blankly like she hadn't heard me. I tried to sound calm. "We still don't have a name search, but if you'd like, I can—" "Are you sure?" That threw me off. "Sure about what?" She smiled. Small, jittery, unsettling. Then she began walking backward toward the door, never breaking eye contact. Her hand found the handle. "I'll send someone," she murmured. Then, she was gone. The man in the suit tie barely had time to process when the door opened. Again, this time so fast it hit the wall. A tall man stepped in, wearing a black overcoat and gold rings that glimmered under the neon light. He looked freshly shaved, perfectly calm and absolutely furious. He didn't browse, didn't blink. He walked straight up to the counter. "You the manager?" "No, sir. You're the one who made Vanessa cry." My stomach dropped. He placed both hands on the counter, fingers spread, rings catching the light. "She's my friend. She says you treat her like trash." I tried to explain, stumbling over words. She comes here sometimes. But our computer doesn't. I would rather not hear it. He leaned in so close I could smell expensive cologne over the faint scent of metal. "Show me her films." My hands shook on the keyboard. I can check the titles manually." "Good." He smiled, that slow, satisfied kind of smile that never reaches the eyes. The search for nearly an hour. I scoured every aisle. He followed me silently, his polished shoes echoing on the old tiles. Every time I looked over my shoulder, he was there, hands clasped behind his back. Humming quietly, the store felt smaller, like the walls were closing in. I could hear my heartbeat louder than the buzzing lights. I found tape after tape, all labeled with Vanessa's stage name, Veronica Rain. She'd been in far more films than I ever imagined. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Her face stared at me from every dusty cover, some smiling, some screaming. When I brought the final stack to the counter, my arms ached. He was already waiting there, tapping his rings against the glass display. "That all of them?" "Yes," I said quietly. He nodded and picked up the entire plastic tub with one arm like it weighed nothing. "I'll take them." "You'll have to pay," I blurted before I could stop myself. "Store policy." That's when he reached under his coat. For a second, I thought he was pulling out a wallet. Then I saw the black metal barrel. He set the gun down softly on the counter. "Are we good?" I nodded. "We're good," he smiled. "Good boy." He walked out, pushing the door open with his shoulder. The tub still balanced in one hand. Through the window, I saw him join Vanessa outside. She was waiting by a black sedan rocking on her heels, her wild hair shining under the streetlight. He opened the trunk, dumped the tapes in, and they both got in. The car vanished into the fog. Aftermath. I stood there for a long time. The store suddenly too quiet. The rain outside sounded like static through the glass. When I finally called my boss, he arrived in 20 minutes with the police. They took my statement, filed a report, and promised to look into it. My boss pulled me aside after. "We can't afford this kind of attention." Eli. He fired me on the spot. I remember stepping outside that night, clutching the cardboard box with my last paycheck and name tag. The rain had stopped, but across the street, under a broken streetlight, a figure stood watching. It was a woman. Her hair was stiff and uneven. Even from that distance, I could tell it was Vanessa. When a car passed by, her reflection vanished, and when the headlights faded, she was gone. Years later, that was 2 decades ago. Cinetime rentals closed long before streaming took over. The building's still there, though a vape shop now. Occasionally, when I drive past late at night, I catch myself slowing down. The sign's still cracked in the same spot, the windows tinted black. But if you look carefully through the glass, just for a second, you'll see the faint outline of a woman standing in the back aisle, staring straight at the counter. Her mouth moves, silently repeating the same words over and over. "Which of my movies do you carry?" And no matter how many years go by, I still don't have an answer. They say you're never really alone during the night shift. And that's what terrifies me most, because someone out there is always watching. I used to work at a small boutique in downtown Portland called the Willow Room, the kind of place that sold candles, wall art, and little ceramic birds that nobody really needed but everyone wanted. The job was simple: smile, fold linens, keep the music low, and lock up before 10. I liked the quiet. The nights were calm, predictable, until that one shift changed everything. It was a Thursday, cold and damp like most nights in Portland. The store smelled of cedarwood candles and rain-soaked pavement. I remember watching the drizzle slide down the big front window, reflecting the neon sign from the coffee shop across the street. It was peaceful. My coworker Jake was stacking throw blankets near the front counter when his phone buzzed. "Dinner plans," he said with a grin. "Some friends just got into town. Do you mind if I head out early?" I told him to go. I could handle the last 30 minutes alone. The register was balanced, the shelves were neat. What could go wrong? He waved, pushed through the glass door and disappeared into the drizzle. The moment his taillights faded, the store felt emptier. It wasn't scary exactly, but something about being the only heartbeat in the building made the air heavier. I tried humming along to the soft instrumental music, but it didn't help much. That's when the bell above the door jingled. The man who entered didn't fit the kind of crowd the Willow Room usually attracted. He was tall, easily 6'2", with a stocky build and a faded denim jacket soaked from the rain. In one hand, he carried a massive Big Gulp cup, and in the other, a golf club. The sound of the metal head tapping the floor echoed through the store. I put on my best customer service smile. "Evening, sir. We're closing in about 20 minutes, but you're welcome to look around." He didn't move. He just stood there looking at me, studying my face like I was an exhibit. His grin stretched wide, too wide. "You work here alone?" he asked. My stomach tightened. It wasn't the question itself. It was how he asked it. Slow, curious, testing. "Just for tonight," I lied, forcing a smile. "My manager's in the back office." His eyes flicked toward the hallway behind me. He nodded slowly, then let out a small laugh. "Smart girl. Always good to have someone watching your back." He started walking through the aisles, dragging the golf club behind him. Clack, clack, clack. The sound followed him like a metronome of dread. He wandered to the home decor section, pretending to browse. I stayed near the counter, close to the panic button hidden underneath. Then he spoke again. "So what are you studying?" The question hit me like a slap. I hadn't mentioned school to him. Not once, still I tried to sound casual. "Psychology," I said. He abruptly stopped speaking. The grin vanished. His shoulders stiffened. "Psychology," he repeated. "Are you one of those mind doctors?" "No," I said quickly. "Just a student." He turned toward me slowly, and for the first time I noticed the white hospital bracelet still hanging from his wrist. It was soaked but legible. My pulse kicked up. He began walking closer. "You think people like me need fixing, don't you?" His voice was low and shaky. "People like you always believe they can fix individuals like us." My hands went clammy. "Sir, I didn't mean—" He cut me off. "What's your name?" I hesitated. "Sarah." "Where do you live?" "Not far. You live alone?" "No, my family's home." He smiled again, tapping the club lightly against his boot. "You're lying, Sarah, I can tell." I felt the wall behind me. There was nowhere left to go. The clock on the wall ticked closer to 10. I cleared my throat. "Sir, we're about to close. Would you like to check out?" He tilted his head. "You smell nice." The words crawled across my skin like ants. I forced a smile. "Thank you. Please come again." He chuckled softly, the sound distorted by the quiet. Then he started walking toward the door. Slow, heavy steps that echoed against the hardwood floor. He paused at the exit, one hand on the glass. "Don't worry, Sarah," he said without turning around. "I'll see you soon." Then he stepped into the rain and was gone. I waited 5 minutes before locking up. Every click of the key echoed too loud. My reflection in the window looked pale, frightened, and not like me. I told myself he was just another unstable customer, maybe drunk, maybe lonely. I was fine. I just had to get to my car. The back door led to a narrow alley shared with a bakery and a flower shop. Employees parked across the lot, just beyond a flickering streetlight. It wasn't far, maybe 30 yards. Still, I changed before leaving. I threw on a gray hoodie, tied my hair up, and wiped off my lipstick. The goal was simple: be forgettable. When I finally stepped outside, the rain had stopped, but everything glistened. Puddles reflected the orange streetlight. The alley smelled like wet cardboard and stale sugar from the bakery. Halfway through, I felt it, that feeling every woman knows. The hairs on my neck stood up, the kind of instinct that doesn't need logic. Someone was there. I stopped, listened. Nothing. Then, clack. A metallic tap was heard. My stomach dropped. Clack, closer now. I turned my head just enough to catch movement at the far end of the alley. A tall silhouette. Broad shoulders. A long object glinted in the streetlight. I started walking faster. My car was just across the street. I could see it. A small silver hatchback parked under the flickering lamp. Behind me, the footsteps quickened. Then came the voice. "Sarah, wait." My heart pounded in my chest. He remembered the fake name. I broke into a run. The sound of his footsteps turned into a full sprint, the club clanging against the pavement. The air filled with echoes and rainwater splashes. I didn't dare look back. "Sarah," he shouted again, louder. "Don't run from me." I reached the crosswalk, the light flashing red. I didn't stop. I dashed into the street, nearly slipping. A car honked somewhere in the distance, but I didn't care. When I reached my car, my fingers were shaking too badly to fit the key. I turned just in time to see him step off the curb. The streetlight illuminated his face, soaked hair plastered to his forehead, eyes wide with fury, hospital bracelet still clinging to his wrist. Then he raised the golf club. The first swing missed me by inches, slamming into the car door with a metallic crack. I screamed, yanked the door open, and dove inside. Before I could close it, he swung again, this time hitting the window. The glass splintered into a spiderweb pattern, tiny shards raining down onto my lap. He roared, slamming the club again. I twisted the key, the engine sputtering to life, and stomped the gas pedal. The tires screeched, throwing up water. Through the shattered glass, I saw his mouth moving, shouting something I couldn't hear. Then the headlights blinded him, and he stumbled backward. I sped out of the lot, tears blurring my vision. When I reached the intersection 2 blocks away, I finally looked in the rearview mirror. He was standing in the middle of the road, the golf club dragging behind him, watching me disappear. I didn't go home. I drove straight to the nearest police station. My voice trembled as I explained what happened. The officer behind the desk barely looked up from his monitor. "Did he actually hit you?" he asked. "No," I whispered. "Then you're lucky," he said flatly. "We'll check the area." I left feeling smaller than when I'd arrived. At 3 a.m., I finally texted my manager and told her everything. She promised to install cameras by the back door and to schedule me for daytime shifts only, but I didn't sleep. I just sat on the couch until the morning light crept through the blinds, still hearing the faint metallic sound in my head. Clack, clack, clack. A week later, the police called. They'd picked him up behind a strip mall 2 neighborhoods away. He was trespassing, muttering to himself about a girl who lied. The hospital confirmed he'd checked himself out against medical advice just 3 days before he came to my store. He told the officers he wasn't trying to hurt me. "I just wanted to talk," he said. When they searched his jacket, they found a crumpled napkin with the store's address on it. My fake name was written underneath over and over, Sarah, Sarah, Sarah. They let him go after 48 hours. That night I requested a transfer to another branch, one that closed before dark. I never saw him again. But some nights, when I leave work late, I catch myself glancing at every alley, every puddle reflection. And in the hum of the city, if I listen closely enough, I swear I still hear that sound somewhere behind me. Clack, clack, clack. You think monsters hide in the dark, but sometimes they stand right in front of you smiling. It was my second week working at a home goods store called Haven and Hearth in Denver. The store smelled like vanilla candles and polished wood. Every aisle shimmered under soft golden lights, and the music was the same 6 songs played on repeat, piano covers of pop hits. It was quiet work, easy money, and I actually liked it. That night I was assigned to the home decor department. Rows of pillows, blankets, and glass vases arranged like art displays. The store closed at 9 p.m., but there were always late customers who came in at 8:55 pretending not to see the signs, and that's when he walked in. He didn't look unusual at first, mid-40s, neatly dressed, tall, but the moment his eyes met mine, something in his smile felt off. It wasn't friendly. It was like he was rehearsing it. He wandered through the aisles until he found me fixing a display of throw pillows. "Hey," he said, tilting his head. "May I ask you something?" I turned, expecting a normal customer question. "Of course, sir. How can I help you?" He laughed quietly, a weird, breathy sound. "Well," he said, glancing at my name tag, "are you even old enough to be working here?" I blinked. "Yes, sir. I'm 22. He chuckled again, looking me up and down. Didn't know they hired teenagers. It was supposed to sound like a joke, but his tone made my stomach twist. I gave a polite smile and turned back to my work, pretending to adjust the shelves. A few minutes later, he appeared again, this time holding one of the decorative pillows. He squeezed it, fluffing it between his hands. "These are too small," he said. "You got any bigger ones?" "I've got a big bed." I forced a professional smile. "What you see here is what we have in stock, sir." He stared for a moment longer than normal, then smirked. "Pity a big guy like me needs more to hold on to." My throat tightened. I pretended not to hear and moved toward the next aisle. Every few seconds I glanced over my shoulder, and each time I caught him watching me. 10 minutes before closing, the store was nearly empty. The only sounds were soft music and the low hum of the air conditioner. I was restocking candles when I felt it, that sensation of someone standing too close. I turned. He was right behind me. I hadn't heard him walk up. He leaned slightly forward, close enough for me to smell his cologne. Strong, bitter, and wrong for the store's cozy atmosphere. "Hey," he said softly, "what's your favorite scent?" I swallowed. "Excuse me?" He smiled wider. "You seem like a vanilla girl, or maybe jasmine. I'm a smell guy, you know." Before I could react, he inhaled loudly right next to my hair, a deep, exaggerated sniff. I stepped back fast, nearly knocking over a display. He just grinned. "Yeah, you smell really good." My hands were shaking as I pretended to rearrange the shelves. "Sir, the registers are up front if you'd like to check out." He followed me to the counter. The overhead lights flickered faintly, something they always did around closing time, but now the flicker felt personal, like the building itself was warning me. I scanned his items, a few candles, a blanket, and the same pillow he'd been holding. The scanner beeped between us, breaking the silence. He watched me the whole time, eyes unblinking. "So, Faith," he said, reading my name tag aloud. "Is that your real name?" "Yes," I said quickly, then immediately regretted it. He tilted his head, smiling like a child catching a secret. "Pretty name, Faith. You smell like it, too." My chest tightened. "That'll be $38.74, sir." He slid the cash across the counter but didn't move his hand away. Our fingers almost touched. He whispered, "I'll be seeing you again soon." I snatched the money, printed the receipt, and said through a forced smile, "Have a good night." He winked and left, but as the door closed behind him, I noticed something strange. He didn't walk toward the parking lot. He turned and disappeared down the side alley that ran behind the building. I told my manager about him the next morning. She brushed it off, saying, "Some customers are just weird. He probably won't come back." But he did. Every few nights, just before closing, I'd catch a glimpse of him through the glass, standing across the street, hands in his pockets, staring at the store. Occasionally, when I walked out to my car, I could smell that same cologne in the air, bitter and heavy, like he'd just been there. I started changing my routine. Different exits, different parking spots. I even swapped name tags with a coworker once, hoping he wouldn't recognize me. For a while it worked. Until that Friday. It was pouring rain that night. The kind of downpour that makes the whole world shimmer under the streetlights. The store was quiet. Only one other employee, Kara, was closing with me. But she left early because her ride had arrived. I told her I'd finish up stupid decision number 1. I was alone when the doorbell chimed. He walked in, soaked to the bone, his wet hair plastered to his forehead. Drops of rain trailed down his jacket onto the tile floor. "Faith," he said softly. "You missed me?" My heart sank. "Sir, we're closing. You'll need to come back tomorrow." He ignored me, stepping further inside. "You moved your car. That was smart. I like smart girls. How do you know where I park?" I asked, my voice shaking. He grinned. "You told me, remember?" My mind spun. I hadn't told him anything. He set his cup down on the counter and took another step closer. "You smell different tonight," he whispered. "Rain suits you." I reached for the phone under the register. "I'm calling the police," he laughed quietly. "You could, but they never come in time." The next few seconds felt like a blur. He reached out, fingers grazing the counter edge. I grabbed a candle jar and hurled it at him. It hit his shoulder, shattering. He stumbled back, cursing, as wax splattered across the floor. I bolted for the side exit. Slamming the metal push-bar door open, cold rain hit my face like needles. I sprinted toward the parking lot, fumbling with my keys, shoes slipping on the wet asphalt. Behind me, the door banged open again. "Faith," he shouted. "Don't make me chase you." I reached my car, yanked the door open, and locked it just as he reached the handle. He banged on the window once, hard, and for a split second, Our eyes met through the glass. His pupils were huge and wild, and his face twisted between rage and desire. Then, just as quickly he smiled, he leaned down, pressing his nose to the glass, even through the rain. I heard him inhale. Then he whispered something I'll never forget. "Still smells like vanilla." He turned and vanished into the storm. The police came 20 minutes later. By then he was gone. They filed a report and checked nearby cameras, but the rain had washed away everything. Prints, footprints, even the shattered wax. For weeks afterward, I couldn't shake it. Every scent, soap, coffee, perfume made me flinch. Every time I walked to my car, I scanned the shadows first. Then one morning, I arrived early to open. The store lights flickered on, and for a split second, I thought I saw movement by the display window. I froze. There, written in fog on the glass, 2 words traced by a fingertip. "Nice smell." I quit that day. I relocated across town, modified my phone number, and began working remotely. But occasionally, when I light a candle at night, vanilla, my favorite scent, I swear I catch another smell beneath it. I detect a scent that is bitter and heavy, reminiscent of cologne. And somewhere, faintly, a voice was whispering through the dark glass, "You smell wonderful right now." The scariest thing isn't being watched, it's realizing they know exactly where to find you. I used to handle logistics at a distribution hub outside Nashville, a big concrete box that smelled like cardboard and motor oil. My job was simple: sign delivery forms, match serial numbers, and keep drivers happy. Most of them were older guys with calloused hands and kind eyes. They'd swap road stories, grab coffee, and be gone by sunrise. Then there was Ray Dalton. Ray was polite at first. Too polite. He always lingered at the counter, leaning close when he talked, calling me Miss June even though my name tag said Lydia. He'd compliment my handwriting, my perfume, and my sweet voice. It was the kind of attention that pretends to be friendly but feels like ownership. The first time he said, "You're the only reason I like this route," I laughed it off. The second time, I stopped laughing. Ray started showing up more often than his route required, sometimes twice in 1 week. When I asked why, he'd grin and say, "Guess I just missed the paperwork, Queen." At first, my coworkers teased me about my secret admirer. Then Eric, one of the forklift guys, noticed something. He said every time Ray came through the gate, he'd ask where I was before even backing up the truck. If I wasn't there, he'd sit in his cab for an hour. That's when it started feeling wrong. One Thursday, the office phone rang right as I was locking up. It was Ray. He said he'd left his delivery slip on the counter and wanted me to check it for him really quick. I told him we were closed. He chuckled. "That's okay. I'm parked outside anyway." I froze. The office was dark. The only light came from the vending machine's blue glow. I peeked through the blinds, and there he was, sitting in his truck, headlights off, staring at the building. I lied that I'd already mailed his paperwork, hung up, and turned off my phone. He sat there for another 10 minutes before finally driving away. The next morning, he acted like nothing happened. But that night, the call started again, private number. Every few hours, sometimes just breathing, sometimes faint country music through static, sometimes silence. I changed my ringtone to something loud so it wouldn't startle me, but that only worsened it. Every buzz shot through my nerves like a jolt. After a week of this, I told my boss. He promised to have a talk with Ray's company. For 3 days, the calls stopped, then they came back, different timing, same silence. By now, the guys in shipping knew something was off. They started walking me to my car every evening, but paranoia had a way of beating logic. I'd still find myself checking behind pallets, watching reflections in the glass doors and flinching at diesel engines in the distance. One afternoon, Eric came running into my office. "Lydia, you need to see this," he said. Breathless, he held up his phone, a photo he'd just taken. Through the loading dock window, Ray's truck was idling behind the fence. He wasn't scheduled for a delivery that day. He wasn't even supposed to be in Tennessee. That evening, I got a text from an unknown number. It said, "Miss June looks worn out tonight. I felt the blood drain from my face. There were no cameras inside the lot, and only employees had access to that area. This meant that he had been close enough to see me. I showed my boss the text the next morning. He called corporate security. They said they'd review access logs and reach out to the carrier. But by the time they did, Ray was already gone. He had resigned from his job. According to the dispatcher, they didn't know where he'd gone next. For a while, things went quiet again. Then one night, the silence broke in the loudest way possible. It was around 2 a.m. when I woke up to the sound of a horn, a long, low blare that rattled my window panes. I stumbled to the blinds and peeked out. A semi-truck was parked across the street, engine running, headlights off. The cab lights flicked on for a moment, and I saw his outline, unmistakable even in shadow. Ray. He raised something, maybe his phone, and a flash went off. He was taking a picture of my house. My hands shook as I dialed. Of course, by the time the dispatcher picked up, the truck was already pulling away. No plates visible, no witnesses, just tire tracks in the wet pavement. The police took a report but said there wasn't much they could do. Without a direct threat, the officer said, "It's just suspicious behavior." Suspicious behavior. That phrase still makes me furious. The next few weeks blurred together, constant fear, locked doors, sleeping with the TV on. Some nights I'd dream of diesel engines rumbling outside, only to wake up and realize the sound was real. I started parking my car blocks away and taking different routes to work. Anything that felt unseen. But the feeling never left. One evening, as I was leaving the warehouse, I noticed something strange. A small keychain on the ground near my car door. A silver heart with the words June Bug engraved on it. It looked old and dirty, like it had been dragged along asphalt. I didn't touch it. I just stared until Eric came out and asked if I was okay. When I pointed at the charm, his face went pale. "That's not yours?" he asked. I shook my head. He picked it up carefully with a rag and tossed it in the dumpster. But that night, another text came in. "You dropped your heart." That was the breaking point. I packed a suitcase, stayed at a friend's house across town, and took a week off work. Corporate finally approved an official security investigation. They found out Ray had stolen copies of delivery manifests. Each one had my initials on them. He'd been tracking where I'd be, based on shipment schedules. They also found a burner phone, hidden inside one of the old lockers in the driver lounge. It had only one contact saved, my number. The police issued a restraining order, but they couldn't serve it. He'd vanished. Months passed. I moved to a new apartment, changed my number, and changed my routine. Life slowly felt normal again. Until one early morning, maybe 6 months later, I stopped at a gas station before work. As I stood at the pump, the air filled with the deep rumble of a diesel engine. I turned. A silver Freightliner was idling near the exit, brake lights glowing red in the fog. The driver's window rolled down. A hand lifted in a slow wave. Then the truck pulled onto the highway and disappeared. I reported it. Of course, the cops said it could have been anyone. Hundreds of rigs looked the same. Maybe they were right, but that night, I got one last text. No words, just a photo. It was taken from the side of a road, my new street, and in the corner of the frame, reflected in the truck's chrome bumper, it was me, standing at the gas pump that morning. I changed jobs a month later. I don't work nights anymore. I don't even answer unknown numbers. Occasionally, when I hear a horn on the highway, my chest tightens like a reflex I'll never lose. Because maybe he's still out there, somewhere between truck stops and rest areas, still watching, still waiting for me to forget, but I don't think I ever will, and if he ever finds me again, I'll know him by the sound of the horn.